You're listening to Civic Media. You can tune into any of our live shows on any radio station across the state with the Civic Media app. Find us in your phone's app store and listen anytime, anywhere. This is your WBZH Daily News Roundup for the Buzz of the North, 9:10 a.m. in Hayward.
For WBZH News, I'm James Kelly. The Lac-Courte Community Health Center held a grand opening ceremony for its new 64,000 square foot healthcare facility this week. The over $45 million facility will allow the organization to offer more services to area residents, including urgent care and behavioral health. Officials say the facility has 16 exam rooms, 12 dental suites, state-of-the-art radiology equipment, and a larger pharmacy with a drive-up window. More information on the available services can be found on the Lac-Courte Community Health Center website. The city of Duluth will receive $62 million in state grant funding to replace a number of lead service lines with copper service lines. The grant funding was announced on Tuesday and will go towards 7 service line replacement projects. City officials say their efforts will be focused on the Lincoln Park, Central Hillside, and Fairmont neighborhoods, as well as Chester Park Drive Alley, Raleigh Street, and London Road. The city of Superior across the state border has also placed major emphasis on replacing lead service lines this year. A pair of Democratic state lawmakers have introduced new legislation aimed at preventing reckless driving incidents. The proposed bill would allocate $60 million of state funding for infrastructure projects designed to make roads safer by discouraging reckless driving. The projects would include things like building speed bumps, creating pedestrian islands, and raising sidewalks to keep vehicles from traveling too fast and improve safety for pedestrians. The funding for the projects would be distributed to local municipalities through traffic calming grants. Democratic state lawmakers announced new legislation to prohibit the concealed carry of firearms on college campuses. The lawmakers held a press conference on Wednesday to introduce the legislation, which has been introduced in previous sessions but never reached the desk of Governor Tony Evers. If passed into law, the legislation would make possessing a gun on campus a misdemeanor that could result in up to 9 months in jail and a fine of up to $10,000. The announcement also came just hours after a shooting at a Catholic school in Minneapolis. City of Ashland officials are looking for solutions after being forced to close the electric vehicle charging stations near City Hall. The stations on Main Street West were initially installed in 2023 with the hope that residents would explore more of the downtown area while waiting for their vehicle to charge. According to city officials, when Wisconsin Act 121 went into effect earlier this year, it essentially made the fully functional chargers non-operational. The legislation prohibits the city from charging people to use level 1 or 2 stations installed before March of 2024. Some City of Superior residents can now access high-speed broadband service through the new Connect Superior program. The program officially became available to residents in the university neighborhoods earlier this month following the completion of the fiber optic infrastructure work. Mayor Jim Payne says the city itself is not the provider for the internet service, but the fiber line network allows private providers to connect more area residents to internet service. Residents can check if they're in the currently available service area at connectsuperior.com. The Barron County Economic Development Corporation and St. Croix Chippewa Indians of Wisconsin are teaming up for a new boat landing project in Bear Lake. The town of Bear Lake had received a $10,000 grant from the Department of Natural Resources for the project, which would see the replacement of the concrete pad at the public boat landing. The tribe contributed a $5,000 donation, matching the town of Bear Lake's $5,000 contribution and the DNR's grant funding to cover the full cost of the project. A state ban on the sale of non-FDA-approved vape products is set to go into effect on Monday. The legislation states that only non-nicotine or menthol-flavored vape products that have been approved by the FDA can be sold at shops in Wisconsin. A group of vape shop owners filed a lawsuit against the legislation in June, with a court date scheduled for this week. They say if the ban does go into effect, the state could lose millions of dollars in tax revenue, and they could be subject to thousands of dollars in fines if they continue to sell the products. Democratic state lawmakers have officially introduced legislation to continue funding the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Program. The program is currently set to end next June if the state legislature does not reauthorize it with additional funding. The newly proposed legislation would increase annual funding for the program to $72 million and require approval from a state board for projects that cost more than $2.5 million. A Republican-authored bill to save the program would require full legislature approval for land purchases of over $1 million. The criminal case against Milwaukee County Judge Hannah Dugan will proceed after a federal judge ruled against dismissing the case on Tuesday. Judge Dugan is accused of helping an undocumented immigrant who was in her courtroom on a misdemeanor battery charge avoid arrest by federal immigration authorities with an administrative warrant. Her attorneys filed a motion to dismiss the case, arguing that she was protected by judicial immunity while undertaking official acts. A scheduling hearing for the next steps in the case will be held next week. For WBZH News, I'm James Kelly.
Badgers football tonight. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. The Wisconsin Badgers season kicks off tonight in Madison as they take on Miami of Ohio. The Redhawks have a new quarterback who's played for two other schools, Daquan Finn, Wisconsin head coach Luke Fickell.
We've watched and know a little bit more about him just because of, trying to look at him a couple years ago. I think he fits what they do in this system more like he did at Toledo than maybe he did at Baylor. I would expect that, you'll see a guy that's pretty dynamic, and I don't just mean in running, but the ability to throw the ball down the field. The ability to create things with his feet, and he's played a lot of football.
NFL, the Packers signed a new quarterback, Clayton Tune. Drafted by the Cardinals in 2023, he'll be on the practice squad. Sean Clifford released after 2 seasons in Green Bay. Baseball, the Brewers losing last night to the Diamondbacks 3-2. The Crew without closer Trevor McGill, now on the 15-day IL with a flexor strain in his right elbow. With sports, I'm Mike Clemens.
On your entertainment beat, I'm Pete Schwaba. If you're thinking about heading to the theater, there is lots of new material opening on the big screen this weekend. The Roses tells the story of love and marriage and fierce competition and deceit between spouses. The film is a remake of the 1989 comedy The War of the Roses, which starred Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner. The new version stars Olivia Colman and Benedict Cumberbatch and is pulling a 65% on Rotten Tomatoes. If you're in the mood for a mystery thriller crime drama, check out Caught Stealing, starring Austin Butler and Zoe Kravitz. Butler plays an ex-baseball player who finds himself caught up in the criminal underworld of New York City. So far, it's looking at an 86% on Rotten Tomatoes. If you're looking for good old-fashioned sci-fi, check out Run, a story about a woman who leaves her husband at the altar and escapes to the woods with her girlfriends. It seems like a normal girls hanging in the woods type weekend until they find one of their friends mutilated and learn Earth is under alien attack. Let's go to the movies. Love it when showbiz stories are Wisconsin-inspired. According to Deadline, Netflix has announced that Monster, the Ed Gein story, will drop October 3rd. Perfect timing in the lead up to Halloween. Playing Gein will be Sons of Anarchy's Charlie Hunnam, who played Jax Teller for the 7-season run of the show. And how's this for a logline? Serial killer, grave robber, psycho. In the frozen fields of 1950s rural Wisconsin, a friendly, mild-mannered recluse named Eddie Gein lived quietly on a decaying farm, hiding a house of horrors so gruesome it would redefine the American nightmare. Ed Gein's story was the inspiration for lots of horror stories and films over the years, including Psycho, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Silence of the Lambs. Sure, we have a few quirky characters here in Wisconsin, but we also have old fashions, beautiful lakes, and great supper clubs. Just wanted to end that beat on a positive. The cast and crew of the new show The Paper got a couple of surprise set visitors recently. The Paper is a spin-off of the show The Office, which is a spin-off of the show The Office. According to Variety, former Office cast members John Krasinski and Steve Carell popped onto the set during the first day of shooting to wish the cast of The Paper good luck. All 10 episodes of The Paper drop on Peacock September 4th. Have you ever been watching a movie or TV show and thought, I wonder what it smells like in that scene? Well, a new product might be just what you need. A new AI-inspired 4D device releases various aromas throughout the course of your program. Scents include restaurant, that's kind of vague, ocean, fresh-cut grass, storm, new car, gunpowder, racing, fire, and for you Fox News fans, Donald Trump's breath, which is a combination of teeth-whitening paste, McDonald's hamburgers, Tic Tacs, and spittle. Only 120 shopping days until Christmas. For more showbiz fun, tune in to Nightlight with me, Pete Schwaba, weeknights from 6 to 8 p.m. on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Hi, meteorologist Brandon Bormans. Some clouds to start, then increasing sunshine as the day goes on. A cool but comfortable day with highs in the upper 60s. Tonight, mostly clear skies, chilly, some patchy frost, lows in the mid-30s. On Friday, mostly sunny, highs near 70. Right now, it's 57.
That's your WBZH Daily News Roundup from Civic Media. Subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you find your podcasts. Find more news at buzzofthenorth.com. The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.